Twisted Tales.
In the summer of 2004, 8-year-old Lily from Chicago traveled with her parents to the small town of Hinton, Oklahoma, to visit her grandparents who lived in a modest farmhouse surrounded by vast open fields and dense woods. Lily spent hours running through the fields and exploring every corner of the forest. Lily's parents had to leave her with her grandparents for a couple of days while they attended to commitments in Oklahoma City. Lily didn't mind at all. She loved her grandparents and relished the freedom of exploring the wild countryside. It was on the second day of her parents' absence that Lily's carefree summer took a terrifying turn. Lily had wandered to the edge of the woods, happily collecting smooth rocks to take home as souvenirs, when she heard an unsettling sound.
Thump, thump, thump.
The sound was low, deliberate, and seemed to come from deep within the trees. Lily cheerfully looked around to see where the sound comes from. She never expected anything bad. She has explored this forest many times before without any problem. That's when she saw her.
Thump, thump.
A towering figure of a woman stood there. She was unnaturally tall, easily 8 feet, if not taller, with a long, flowing gray dress that hung like a shroud over her lanky frame. Her face was pale, cold, and hollow, with thick brown hair tumbled past her shoulders, and a wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow that made her unsettling features even more obscured. The woman's soulless eyes locking with Lily's, which freaked Lily out and made her unable to make any sound, and the world seemed to freeze around her. Finally, the figure walked away, fading into the darkened woods like smoke. Lily froze in terror, but instinct soon took over. She sprinted back to the farmhouse, heart racing, and burst inside, breathlessly recounting what had happened to her grandmother. Her grandmother's face went pale as Lily shakily recounted her story. Once she finished, the room fell silent. Gripping Lily's shoulder, her grandmother whispered, "Describe her. What did you see and hear?" Lily repeated everything, trembling. Her grandmother's grip tightened. "It's her. She's back." "Who?" Lily whispered. Her grandmother turned to her husband and explained what happened with Lily. Grandpa rushed to the rotary phone and his cell phone to call Lily's parents. His trembling hands fumbled as he struggled to compose himself, but there was no response. Leaving a desperate voice message, he let out a shaky breath and turned back to Lily. Lily's grandpa sat her down, his expression grave. "You need to listen carefully, Lily," he began. "It seems that this entity tall woman has chosen and marked you, and if we can't protect you, she'll abduct you, just as she did to many other children who lived in this area decades ago." Lily was terrified and confused from what she has been told. "The tall woman, who's she?" Lily asked, since she couldn't help but wanting to know more. Grandpa explained, "No one truly knows where she came from. Some say she's a demon, while others believe she's the vengeful spirit of a woman who met a terrible fate in these woods long ago. What's certain is that the tall woman marks her victims by silently approaching them and chanting a deep, eerie thump, thump, thump before retreating. Within days, those who have been marked vanish without a trace. Years ago, Native American shamans supposedly trapped her in an old shrine by placing sacred totems at the north, south, east, and west points of the ruins. But somehow, she's escaped." Lily was taken to the safest room in the house, where the windows were securely boarded up. At its center stood a bowl of pure, blessed holy water, radiating powerful, protective energy. That bowl that was placed in the room is a sacred relic known as the Bowl of Sancta Vitae. It was forged by holy hands and blessed with prayers of countless saints. It held holy water imbued with divine light, glowing softly and radiating purifying energy. It was said to cleanse the souls of the afflicted and repel the most malevolent spirits. Lily's grandma had a strong connection with the church, so she told the priests who served there about her granddaughter's situation, and the priests already knew about this evil entity, the tall woman, and the incidents that it was related to her. So they agreed to lend her the bowl. "You must not leave this room, not under any circumstances," her grandmother strictly instructed. "Never." Lily's voice trembled. "Not until your parents return to take you home," Grandma replied. "Then I'll be safe?" Lily asked. "Yes." Her grandmother sighed deeply, with the thoughts of unspoken worries. "But there's one thing you must understand. Once you leave this house, you can never ever return to Hinton, not for any reason." Lily's heart sank. "Never come back? Why not?" Her grandmother, with a sorrowful knowledge she could not fully explain. "Because some places are touched by darkness, and those who've been marked by it are never truly forgotten. It's the only way to keep you safe." As her grandmother stepped out of the room, Lily began to cry. "Don't leave me," she pleaded. Her grandmother paused. "I can't stay in the room, but you must lock the door once I close it. Do you understand?" Lily nodded reluctantly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Once the door clicked shut, her sobs grew heavier, and an overwhelming sense of despair settled over her like a weight she couldn't lift. Night descended over the countryside, and Lily sat alone in the dimly lit room. Tears streamed down her face as she sobbed softly, yearning for the moment her parents would arrive to take her home. As the cold, dark night stretched on, Lily sat huddled in the dim rooms. Suddenly, she heard her grandfather's voice. "Lily, are you okay?" he called out. "If you're scared, I can come in and keep you company. You don't have to stay all alone in there." Almost pleading, Lily rose up and walked toward the door. She approached the door with caution, but an icy chill crept over her, freezing her in place as a terrible realization struck. Something was off. Her grandfather's voice sounded strange, subtly wrong. "Open up!" the voice urged again, insisting. "It's safe now." Lily took a closer look at the holy water bowl, and she could see the bowl is losing its glow and turning black. Then a dark, shadowy energy got inside the bowl, as she heard the sound thump, 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 thump coming from the other side of the door, which gave her goosebumps. Panic overtook Lily as she retreated to the center of the room. Overwhelmed with fear, she sat by the table, trembling as sobs and tears streamed down her face. Suddenly, the dimly lit room filled with an icy chill as smoke seeped through the door. As the smoke thickened, forming the towering, intimidating figure of the 8-foot-tall woman, the woman opened her arms happily, then a manic grin spreading across her ghostly face as she started walking towards Lily. When Lily glanced at the woman, she let out a very loud scream. Lily's loud scream was heard by her grandpa, who burst into the room with a shotgun in his hands. He froze at the sight of the tall woman looming over Lily. Shaking but determined, he raised the shotgun and fired 2 shots at the tall woman. The shotgun blasts echoed, but the tall woman didn't flinch. Her grin turned to a furious snarl, eyes blazing. His defiance had interrupted her, and now her rage filled the place. With a sudden, inhuman shriek, she leapt forward, with her long clawed hands towards Lily's grandpa. The monstrous figure stood upon Grandpa, with her long hands clamped around his neck. She hoisted him into the air as he gasped to breath. The specter's eyes burned with malice as she turned her head sharply, noticing Lily's grandmother, who had emerged from her room. Lily's grandma froze with horror from the terrifying sight in front of her. A blood-curdling scream tore from her lips, echoing through the house. Suddenly, the holy water bowl began to glow brightly once more. The demonic energy suppressing its divine power had been lifted, as the tall woman's rage consumed her focus, leaving her unaware of its resurgence. As Lily watched in terror, her eyes caught the glowing bowl. Desperation flickered into hope as she grabbed it, feeling its divine energy pulse through her hands. Clutching it tightly, she began to think of a way to use it against the tall woman. Summoning every ounce of courage, Lily clutched the glowing bowl and charged at the towering spectre. With trembling hands and fierce determination, she splashed the holy water onto the tall woman, as her fears giving way to her resolve. The holy water drenched the tall woman, and a piercing, agonized scream tore from her. Her twisted form convulsed violently as she began to disintegrate, her dark essence dissolving into the air until she vanished completely. With the tall woman vanquished, Lily's grandparents hurried to her, their arms wrapping tightly around her small frame in a warm, protective embrace. In the dimly lit house, their trembling bodies pressed together as they held on to one another, finding solace and a fragile sense of safety after the harrowing ordeal they had just endured. As morning broke, Lily's parents arrived, their faces etched with worry and relief. They scooped her into their arms, holding her tightly as if never wanting to let go, before gently placing her in their car. With heavy hearts and without a second glance, they left Hinton behind, vowing never to return to the place that had brought them such terror. Back in Chicago, Lily stayed in touch with her grandparents. Their phone calls were a lifeline to the love they shared. Yet, an eternal sorrow weighed on her heart, knowing she could never visit them again, and that their frail age made traveling impossible for them. The sorrow deepened when, several years later, Lily's grandfather passed away, followed by her grandmother just a year after. The weight of grief was made heavier by the painful reality that she couldn't attend either of their funerals. A final goodbye was forever out of reach. A week later, after her grandmother passed, Lily received a phone call from a distant cousin who had inherited the old house. "Lily," the cousin said, "I was cleaning out the attic and found a strange hat. It reminded me of that creepy story your grandparents used to talk about a tall woman spirit. Well, it's probably nothing, but I thought you should know." Lily was worried and asked her cousin to describe that hat to her, but suddenly she heard it again through the static of the phone. That scary voice came back again, and it sounded deep and unnatural. Thump, thump, thump.
Thump. Thump.
Lily's hands trembled as she clutched the phone, confusion quickly giving way to shock. And a chill crept down her spine as the horrifying truth dawned. The tall woman had returned. Her nightmare is far from over. She darted to the corner of the room and curled up tightly, memories flooding back of that dreadful night at her grandparents' home when she first encountered the towering spectre.